So I think Fractal Design currently makes some of the best looking PC cases on the market. Over the past year or so, they've really pivoted to this unique style, which uses some of the materials that you'd find in a home interior. As a result, they just blend in really well. They're some of the least PC case looking PC cases. And this is their latest model, which I think more than anything looks like a speaker or something like that, which I think is actually a good thing. You put this next to your TV or at your desk setup, and it's not screaming for attention. It just really blends in. Don't get me wrong, I really like the RGB stuff and the glass kind of fish tank cases as well, but there's something so visually easy about this instead. For example, the amount of fabric used on this PC case is pretty nuts. I've never seen anything like this before, and it's not something that I thought I would enjoy, but here it actually works really well. Also wraps around the entire front and sides of the case. There are no panel gaps or seams or anything like that, which is really nice. Also, no visible screws or rivets, which makes this look extremely clean. Especially if you're viewing it from this angle, it is incredibly clean. There is no hint at all that this is a PC case until you look at the bottom of the front side and you've got a power switch and some USB ports. The fabric also doesn't wrap around the entire case. Once you get to the back, you've got some more kind of dedicated ventilation for your GPU in the form of a hole punched plastic panel. But yeah, you remove this and then you can start working inside the case. Here it is next to Fractal's own Terra, which is a 10.5 liter PC case. So yeah, the new Fractal Mood is actually quite big. This thing comes in at 20 liters in volume, which is definitely kind of on the edge of what people would call small form factor. It is roughly twice the size of the Terra, and actually it's almost 3 times the size of the Xbox Series X. So yeah, visually it does take up quite a lot of space compared to the Terra, as you can see, but the footprint is actually, pretty similar. So the amount of space that it's going to be taking up at your desk or at your living room is not going to be too different to most ITX systems out there. Now the airflow for this thing is actually pretty cool. Similar to the Xbox Series X, you've got this massive fan at the top, which acts like a chimney. It exhausts all of that hot air that's building up inside the case. This thing is actually 180 millimeters wide, so should move quite a bit of air. And then you've got this fabric, which wraps around most of the case. If you take a closer look, it only is breathable in this front portion here and the back portion, of course, which has the hole punch ventilation for the GPU. These side panels, though, are actually completely solid panels. They don't allow air to pass through at all. This sounds pretty bad at first, but it is actually pretty clever. This top exhaust fan creates negative pressure within the case. That means air has to replace the air that's going out of it. And by blocking the side panels, you're maximizing the kind of suction effect that is going through the front and rear panel. In other words, you're maximizing the amount of airflow going to your GPU and your CPU. This is what's known as a sandwich layout case. So you've got your GPU compartment over on this side, and then in this compartment, you've got your motherboard and your power supply. And this side, which is also where your CPU cooler goes, I think is a little bit too generous, especially for what most people are going to be building inside this case. As you can see, this is like 2.5 times the size of your GPU compartment. The good thing about this is that when it comes to CPU cooling, you've got a lot of it. So you've got this side bracket right here where you can mount up to a 280mm radiator. You can also do a 240 if you've currently got one that you want to reuse. As a result though, the GPU compartment, which is this smaller area here, is way tinier than I was expecting for a 20 liter volume. In terms of what graphics cards you can actually fit in this thing, it is basically the same as the Fractal Terra, but unlike the Terra, there is no way to move this spine portion here to adjust the clearance for either side. Here, it is completely locked in. Also in the Fractal Terra, you can build with the 4080 or 4090 Founders Edition cards, whereas here, you cannot because you are hard limited to 2 expansion slots. Unfortunately, the physical 3-slot cards here will not work. And I've got to say it again, but the exterior of this new case is so clean. But let's get to building in it and testing it out. I've stuck with air cooling here since I'm just going with the 8-core 7800X3D, and I've also positioned the cooler to blow upwards towards that top exhaust fan, just to help with airflow a little bit more. But yeah, dropping it in, plugging in all the I/O cables, then plugging in the GPU riser, no issues at all. I've stuck with the Corsair SF750 Platinum for the power supply, which is an SFX unit, although I will note that larger SFX L units will fit here as well. There's also not much to do in terms of serial serious cable management because there's so much room and empty space inside this thing, much more than I'm used to. Routing the GPU cable as well is a bit odd. They give you the tiniest cutout that I've ever seen. Even with my custom 16-pin GPU power cable, it was a pretty tight fit. I ended up just routing it over that center spine. And then for the GPU, I went with this RTX 4080 Super from Zotac, which is not the biggest card out there by any means, but I ended up finding out that this is the thickest card that will fit in the new Fractal Mood. It comes in at 59mm of thickness, which is just under 3 slots, and as you can see, it's a really tight fit. But yeah, that is the entire build wrapped up in about 10 minutes. And the temperatures are pretty solid. I loaded up the new Hellblade 2 in my living room. Temperatures are about what I expected with the room temp at around 22°C. The only thing I'd recommend doing is making a fan curve for that top exhaust fan, just so it ramps up based off of the GPU temperature, and you can do this in a software called Fan Control. The overall noise as well is soft and quiet enough that it disappears behind any game audio that you have playing, but it's far from a silent PC. I think this PC case is almost perfect. If Fractal had made the spine movable, like what we've seen in the Terra and the T1, we'd be able to fit even bigger GPUs, and we'd also be able to offset the GPU away from the hole punched panel at the back to improve the noise levels even more. There are a few other things as well, like not being able to offset the PSU away from the graphics card, and the riser cable being a bit janky, and the case just overall being a little bit big for my preferences. The aesthetics though, super clean. One of the cleanest PC cases that I've ever worked with, and I think specifically for living room gaming setups, this thing is like perfect. In fact, I am about to update my living room PC and I am super tempted to build it in this. For something a lot more space optimized though, you might want to wait until my next video on this thing right here.